Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us here for today's webinar, I can call it, seminar. My name is Ari Kievman. I'm the director and rabbi of Chabad's Dynamic Seniors Programs. And today we are presenting Grit, the power of perseverance, with none other than psychotherapist Rebbitzin Maria Beider. And I know that you're all in for a special treat. There's a lot we could learn. So I would like to welcome Maria, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I got my American accent, so please don't mind that. And I'm sure there's gonna be lots of questions. So if I could ask everyone, if you have any questions during the presentation, at any point, just type them into the question box right over here. There's a question box, the Q&A section. And we'll make sure, I'll try to bring them up during the presentation or towards the end of the presentation. So Maria, maybe you can start off and tell us a little bit about yourself. We met at the Pesach retreat last year, and it was such a special treat to hear you speak, and your husband, Rabbi Daniel Beider. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you to South Africa? How did you come here? Well, I know from the Pesach retreat you got here, but tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, hi, so welcome everybody, and thank you so much for the introduction. It's so nice to see you, Rabbi Kievman. Yeah, the Pesach retreat was such an amazing experience, and it feels like a lifetime ago now, pre-Corona days. Unfortunately, life has changed a lot since then. But yeah, so I'm originally from London, as is my husband. We got married 20 years ago, and after 5 years of me begging, we moved to Israel, during which time I became a clinical social worker. So Jerusalem is really our home, and we were very, very privileged to be invited to join the Pesach retreat in Pilanesberg a year and a half ago now, which was a beautiful experience, and it happened to be a segue into us moving here on a sort of shlichut to Johannesburg. So yeah, that's what happened. And we're now living in Johannesburg. We've been here since January. My husband is working as a rabbi and CEO in Or Sameach, and I'm, I've begun to open a practice as a psychotherapist and work in that capacity. Yep, that's us.
So a very, very warm welcome to South Africa. And I just want to give you a word of warning, about 11 years ago, in fact, it was exactly 11 years ago, just before Rosh Hashanah of 2009, that I came at the invitation of Rabbi Masinter to just come for a little bit. I told my wife, just 6 months, let's try it out. And here we are 11 years later. And it's a good place to be, Maria, so don't worry.
Yeah, no, it is. It's wonderful.
On that note, tomorrow is a very special and auspicious day on the Chabad calendar. It's Chai Elul, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. But the predecessor of the Alter Rebbe and the successor of the Baal Shem Tov was Rabbi Dovber, the Maggid of Mezrich. And before we get into your psychotherapy, I just thought I should share a little story about them, because I find it quite relevant talking about your journey. And the story goes that once there was a traveler visiting Rabbi Dovber, the Maggid, and he was quite surprised to come to his home and see it was quite barren. There wasn't much furniture. He didn't have much there. So the visitor said, Rebbe, why don't you have, nice golden chandeliers like some other rabbis I visit? And, you need the best china and all these wonderful things. Look at the Beiders. They came here just with a few suitcases. You live here, you should have a nice, big, beautiful home. So the rabbi asked him, how did you answer questions with questions? So his question and response was, where are your golden chandeliers? Where are your walk-in closets? Where are all your beautiful possessions? The man says, Rebbe, if you come to my house, I'll show you them. Right now, I'm just traveling through, so I don't have them. And the Rebbe looks at him with a big, broad, beautiful smile and says, I'm just like you. I'm just traveling through. I don't need to collect all these possessions. Life is just too precious to worry about those, about those specific things. So you're on your journey, you're here, and obviously you extended your stay because this is by divine providence. There's a need for you here in the community. And I believe that today we're very privileged, thanks to that we can have you on here with us on this special session. So I would like to start off with a question that I know many people are wondering, and a lot of our viewers, we have over 60 screens participating right here on Zoom at the moment, which I know is going to grow. But we have hundreds of viewers on Facebook and other channels as well. And there'll be many viewers who are going to log in later as well. So a basic question that is across the board to everyone. A lot of people ask me to make sure this is recorded because I want to hear you. The question is, what can people do to help themselves during this difficult time? We've got to think about, some people are back to shul and back to school, but there are many, especially the elderly, who are being advised, stay at home. And it's been a long time. It's since March that we're on this lockdown. So what can people do to help themselves?
Okay, so there's a lot of things that people can do. And, you'll hear me talk about different techniques and ideas during this talk. But the first thing that I want to mention, and I think this comes right at the top of the list, and you could probably back that up for me from a Jewish perspective, a Torah perspective, and that's self-care. You have to love yourself first before you love others. It's so important. I can't emphasize it enough. The importance of looking after yourself by doing things for yourself that make you feel good, make you happy, whether it's, having that hot bath or, eating the chocolate or the piece of cake that makes you feel good, watching a movie if that's how you need to chill out, calling a friend, any of those kind of down to earth, real things. Just, look after yourself, have a manicure, a facial, whatever it is you need to do to feel good.
That sounds very appropriate. And I could remind everyone, self-care should obviously the physical care, and it's very important that everyone the Torah tells us we have to look at it after our physical well-being. Exercise, you want to get those vitality points, only 3 months left, right? But at the same time, we also have to take care of our spiritual well-being. And we have daily classes right here. There are so many webinars that we at Chabad offer every single day. The Chabad Seniors Club, we have a Zoom share every morning. There are evening sessions. And even this evening, we have a concert live from Jerusalem. So everyone's welcome to tune in to this Zoom channel this evening. We have Avraham Fried and many other world-class entertainers that you could join. And it's loving self-care, as you've said. So,
amazing.
Fine, obviously we have to take care of ourselves. What about people who are feeling very anxious? There are people who certainly are very anxious. What's going to be? My mother used to remind me, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today's a gift of God. That's why it's called a present. We have to seize the moment. But for people who are anxious, it's difficult. And I really think people would love to hear your tips and advice what to do.
Yeah. We all feel anxious, and I certainly do at times. And I think that that's something really important to acknowledge. What I do is I call it's a part of ourselves, and that's an anxious part. What we need to do is, rather than push it away and repress it and just ignore it because it's just going to come back, we need to really get to know that part and befriend it, acknowledge it. And what ends up happening is that when we do acknowledge these parts, like especially anxious parts, they tend to just calm down much more. It's really just about sort of normalizing them. It's very normal to feel anxious. That's part of being human. Sometimes anxiety is so repressed. People are so good at holding it all together and being these super women and supermen. And, I'm not anxious, I'm totally with it and coping and capable. Sometimes what happens is the anxiety expresses itself in other ways. So it could come out in a dream. I actually had a nightmare, funnily enough, during lockdown, which it was so obvious what it was about. I dreamt that I was trapped in a lift, in an elevator, if you're American. Yeah. That's quite obvious what the message is. I was obviously feeling very anxious and trapped and hemmed in. So as I said, anxiety can express itself, in your subconscious through dreams. It can also express itself through the body in somatic symptoms. People experience things like skin conditions, eczema, headaches, stomach aches. It could be a whole host of somatic symptoms, and I think, or backache even. I think the important thing is to really, as I said, acknowledge what that is, and see it as a way of your body trying to tell you that there's anxiety going on. But above all, I would just say, Rabbi Kiedman, that it's very normal and it's nothing to really be frightened of. You know, that we're all going through this.
Certainly, and I think that's across the board, regardless of one's age and stage in life. Getting stuck in the lift or the elevator depends who invented the language, right? But the British invented the language. But regardless, we're in the month of Elul, and Elul is about elevation, elevator, right? We're in the elevator right now. So we're trying to get out of that state of anxiety, and your tips are certainly helping people. I just see one of the questions that have come through here is, hello, are there going to be any outside shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah? Some people cannot go. I guess that's certainly an anxiety. So I'm going to answer that question right now. Maybe we'll get back to that a little later. But yes, certainly, Chabad House is arranging that there will be shofar blowing throughout Johannesburg. So please, God, a list will come out by next week. You probably need it by next week before Rosh Hashanah. We're compiling the list. We're training many people to become shofar blowers. Anyone participating wants to become a shofar blower. You want to learn the rules of blowing the shofar, and you're able to blow shofar for as many people as possible throughout Rosh Hashanah, then touch base with us at Chabad. You could just go to our website, chabad.org. You'll see the link. You click on that and you'll learn how to participate. We'll get you a shofar, we'll get you trained, and you can be a shofar blower, right? Shofar, show good. So I think the next question that comes to mind from everything you've been saying is, you know, it's true, we could work with our anxiety and it's normal and it's part of life, but how does this work for other emotions? You know, some people are sad, maybe even angry. I know too many words to describe that phenomenon: lugubrious, melancholy, morose, downtrodden, right? There's too many words to describe that kind of condition. What can people do? How can they get out of it? It's a new year beginning and we want a fresh start. What's your advice?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because I think Elul is that time where we're looking at those parts that come up, and you know, with Cheshbon and Nefesh and those midot. So again, it's similarly to the way that I described dealing with the anxiety. There are a couple of techniques that I'll describe to you. So this can work. This is called IFS, which it stands for Internal Family Systems, which really means that we all have these internal families inside of us. They're like little children running around and they need someone to manage them and deal with them. So that's where our self or our neshama comes in to guide them. And those little children parts might be scared parts, anxious, as we said, sad parts, angry parts, frustrated parts, impatient parts. I mean, the list goes on and on. It can be any part of your personality. And the way IFS deals with it is what I said before, that rather than just kind of pushing it away, we get to know the part. You know, if it's an angry part, we get to know that anger, like what is it doing for us? Why is it there? What is it trying to tell us? And as we get to know the part, it tends to teach us more about what's going on beneath, and makes us feel more shalei, more whole as a person. And the parts, as I said, they're like children. When they have leadership, when they have the self or the neshama, as I call it, leading them, they tend to just like feel more taken care of, more understood, and less anxious or less sad, whatever it is. They just need care. So that's one approach to those parts. And another approach, which is a different approach, which is taken from something called the 3 principles, is this idea that a lot of these emotions that we're feeling are really just thoughts that come into our head. And it's the metaphor I give is like the cats. I don't know if you've been to Yerushalayim and seen all the cats walking around Yerushalayim like they own the place. So where I live in Nachlaot, there's a cat lady and she feeds the cats. And then the next day there are more cats. And obviously the more she feeds them, the more cats come. So if you don't want cats living around your neighborhood, you don't feed the cats, right? So it's the same with our thoughts. If we feed them and, you know, encourage those thoughts, then they'll just come back more and more until they could become, God forbid, you know, obsessive thoughts that drive us mad. And so the way to deal with them is really just to, like the cats, just watch them, let them pass by, and, you know, don't feed them, don't give them attention, because the more you do, the more they come back. So, you know, just as the cats will go away if you just ignore them, it's the same with these thoughts. You just let them pass by, let them float by like clouds in the sky. They will pass. So yeah, those are two approaches I use.
Is there a point, I mean, digress for a second, of acknowledging and recognizing that these thoughts are real, that we really are grappling with difficult issues, these are uncertain, challenging times? I'll give you an example. You know, I mentioned it's the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov tonight. So a story that comes to mind is that one year the Baal Shem Tov asked one of his followers, his name was Reb Zev Kitzis. He said, I want you to blow the shofar for us in the shul. And imagine, you know, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of people would come to be in the presence of the Baal Shem Tov and Mezhebush, to be with the Rebbe. You know, you think about how many people go to his grandson in Uman today. Rabbi Nachman of Breslau was the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. And many people came from all over Eastern Europe to be there with him. And this man, Reb Zev, was given the task of blowing the shofar. It wasn't a simple task, because the Baal Shem Tov introduced the Hasidic movement. It was based on the teachings of mysticism, of Kabbalah, and he studied for months to prepare to blow the shofar. And he studied all the Kabbalistic meditations and ideas that one should have in mind whilst blowing the shofar. And he narrowed it down to summarize it onto just a paper with all the notes. He would look at those notes and he would remember all the ideas he's meant to have in mind. And he was confident, prepared. He did this all before Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah morning. Maybe it was a Sunday like this year, so the second day. He comes up to the bima to blow the shofar, and he goes into his pocket, reaches into his pocket to get the note, and the note's missing. He put on the wrong pair of pants. He doesn't know how. You know, imagine when that happens. And his mind is just, he can't remember those ideas. And with a broken heart, he just blows simple blasts of the shofar. And he was so disappointed in himself. And afterwards, he just was so embarrassed. He tried to avoid the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov comes to him with this warm, beautiful smile and says, Reb Zev, that was the most beautiful shofar blowing I've heard. He says, what do you mean, Rebbe? I didn't have in mind those intentions. I was totally broken and lost. And the Rebbe says, that's exactly it. There's nothing as whole as a broken heart. And he said to him, in the heavenly realms, there are various keys to different chambers. And each meditation is a key to another chamber, to mercy, to compassion, to God's abundant kindness. But there's a master key that goes to all the chambers, and that is the key of a broken heart. So my question, I guess, is there a point as well in not denying and repressing our stress, our anxiety, but to some degree maybe acknowledging and saying, this is real, and how do I deal with it? So certainly now these are uncertain times. Some people are going back to shul, others are being instructed to stay back. What about those feelings?
Right. So I love that story. It's beautiful. And yeah, I think a broken heart is the way to go. You know, it's the most genuine way to be. So I think, what you're raising now is the theme of uncertainty, which we're all experiencing at the moment. It's such an uncertain time. We don't know what's going to be, and it's so hard. People not being able to go to shul, and others can. And there's, I have 2 kids in school and 2 not in school, and it's crazy. It's very, very stressful. So the way I see uncertainty is, to me, it's kind of a form of lack of control, that we're not in control, and we like to be in control. We like to think we're in control, even though Hashem's clearly showing us that we're not. But that is also a form of anxiety, to be honest, not being in control and the uncertainty. If we had complete emunah and bitachon, then this wouldn't be an issue. But obviously, we all experience that uncertainty as an anxiety. So there's definitely a lot of down-to-earth tips that I can give, if that's helpful at this time. So here's a few ideas if you want to hear. You ready?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're all ears.
Okay, great. So first of all, in terms of the news and what's going on with the virus and the pandemic, and I just think that reading the news and listening to the news and reading everything on social media can also bring about a tremendous amount of anxiety. So I would say, if that's making you feel anxious, then avoid doing that. Try to kind of mute these groups and avoid like reading everything. You don't have to read everything. It's not that important. You know, you can still go about your everyday life as long as you're sanitizing your hands and social distancing and wearing masks if that's necessary. Then you know that's really all you have to do. Yeah, I mean, also if that makes you anxious, you can ask other people to give you the important information. That's one tip, I think, is just not reading everything. And then, you know, there's lots of mindfulness techniques, which I think are really valuable, which mindfulness is really just about, you actually mentioned it at the beginning, focusing on the present, on the here and now, trying not to jump to the future, which can make you anxious, or thinking about the past, which can also make you feel anxiety as well. So ways of being mindful would be, you know, really just kind of sitting still, and you know, you can put your hands on your lap, just like concentrate on feeling the fabric of your clothes on your fingertips, putting your feet firmly on the ground, which, you know, feeling the comfort of the earth, of the floor that it provides for you. Listening to sounds around you, you know, might be the birds in the trees. In South Africa, we have these hardy-dars, which make an incredible noise. Never heard anything like it before, actually. Or, you know, or the sound of the rain falling, any of those kind of just very simple sounds, you know, in nature. You can also listen to the sound of your breathing, and there are breathing techniques that you can do. And also just like writing down your thoughts and your feelings, writing a list of everything that's making you anxious. Sometimes putting it on paper can be very, you know, helpful as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you, I guess a little mantra I have that reminds me of that is, remember the past, live the present, and trust the future. So yes, certainly we have to just keep reminding ourselves God is in control, and those feelings are certainly real, and we could just use these tips and techniques that you mentioned. Certainly breathing techniques help us be in the present. So that's certainly very powerful. Sometimes we forget about that. It's a very basic technique that each of us have. And it's good to get that reminder from you that we could do that, you know, right?
Right.
Write it out to someone. It's certainly great. And I want to say to the seniors out there, you know, at Chabad House, we have a program which is wellness checks. And there are hundreds of people who are signed up to this wellness program, where we have volunteers calling elderly people. Some people say, don't call me so often. Others are asking, can you call me more frequently? And we connect you with a volunteer who's willing to hear you out. So we could actually experience these techniques that Rebbe Tzabayit is sharing with us. And whether you want to write it out or talk it out, we could certainly assist you. And there's absolutely no charge for this. And we'll be glad to assist you and help you out in any way we can. Maria, what about people who feel that life is aimless, so feel lost during this time, or in general? Sadly, I've seen too many lives lost during this period, not directly due to the virus, but due to the effect, the greater effect that it's been having on people. And I think it's important if we could address that and prevent people who are feeling lonely and sad. You know, we mentioned that people can connect with the buddy, that we're happy to set them up with the volunteers who are willing to speak to them. But what other tips have you got on that?
Yeah. So I do want to talk about connecting, and I'm going to remind me to mention that later on, because I don't want to forget that. But for now, just, you know, I think it is important to mention grief, because, you know, people have lost loved ones. And so I just want to talk a little bit about grief, you know, from a psychological perspective or a therapeutic perspective. Also, even if you haven't lost anyone, I think we've all experienced this loss of life as we knew it. You know, life has changed. The way we live our lives now is very different from what it was back, you know, before Purim. So grief is described, grief is described as there are 5 stages of grief that we go through, and they're not always linear or in this order, but they often are. And that's, you know, you can all relate to this if you've experienced grief or you've been through mourning. And that's, you know, at first there's this kind of shock or denial that this could really have happened. And then we may experience anger, and we may go through a sort of bargaining, you know, like trying to work this out in reality and put it into place. And then there's the sadness that comes. And finally, we like hopefully get to a stage of acceptance. But what's been added to that list, this was all described by somebody in the field called Kubler-Ross back in the 70s, who worked with terminally ill patients. But then somebody else came along who worked with her, whose name was Kessler, and he talks about a 6th stage of grief, which is about finding a purpose and a meaning to the grief. And this reminds me of Viktor Frankl, the Auschwitz survivor, who was able to find meaning during the time that he was in Auschwitz. So this is something practical that actually we can all do, which is, you know, finding a purpose to our day. So it could be something really, really down to earth, like, you know, just having a list of things that you want to get done, or having a goal, you know, like writing a poem, or writing a book, writing a novel. There's so many things you can do. You can set yourself a challenge as well. Personally, for me, when I was in lockdown, I decided that I had to get my photo albums done. I was really behind in making all my family holiday albums and my daughter's bar mitzvah albums. So that was a real focus for me. And I managed it. So I'm really happy about that. Other things you can do, which I think are really helpful, are, you know, using your creative outlets. So whether that's kind of painting or drawing, pottery, maybe it might be music, anything creative. Another really good thing, I think, is using humor. The ability to share jokes and to laugh is a wonderful way of, you know, finding meaning as well to what's going on during mourning. And yeah, also all these things are a way of like building resilience, you know, making a resilient person.
You mentioned about setting the goals and doing things during this time, which you know, whether it's putting together your picture albums or other things. In history, I'm forgetting offhand which sages it was, but there were some great Jewish sages who've written books during lockdowns. There were previous lockdowns, there were pandemics. You know, the most recent one was 102 years ago with the Spanish flu, but throughout history, there were many others, and a lot has been achieved. And the truth is, at the end of the day, if it's part of the divine plan, we just have to seize every moment of this and make the best of it. It's God's way of telling us to slow down. But you mentioned resilience. And I know that in Israel, the United Hatzalah has a whole team. What's the Hebrew word for it, for resilience?
Is it Hosan? Is that what you're talking about?
Hosan, yes, Hosan, exactly. And our local chapter of Hatzalah South Africa, that I'm one of the responders for, we've also here created a resilience team. It's called the Crisis Response Unit, which deals with not only the physical damage, you know, somebody's hurt, or somebody, God forbid, had a stroke or a heart attack or trauma, you know, whatever the situation might be. So we have a team of responders who also know, who are trained to deal with the crisis, the trauma, to help people with their resilience. And I'd love for you to maybe share with us, if you could talk a little bit about resilience. Maybe you could explain to all of us what exactly is resilience and how can people become more resilient?
Okay. Yeah, so I love what you called this talk, which is the grit. You know, I feel like grit kind of sums it up in such a sort of succinct way. But yeah, really, I mean, the way I see resilience is that, you know, you go through challenges in life, and if you have the ability to adapt to those challenges, you know, to be flexible, and to be able to really bounce back from anything like a difficult event that you've been through, that's really the way I see resilience. Also, I think just to get through obstacles. Another aspect I think of resilience is just emotional strength. It's not just physical. It's, you know, just being able to cope with a crisis, and, as I said, to bounce back, really.
if I were to put on my rabbinic hat, the Hasidic approach in life is that there's no such thing really as obstacles. Maybe these bumps in the road are just challenges and windows of opportunity. And I'll share.
Yeah, I would also just say, as you mentioned, that there are ways of us growing. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yes. Well, I heard this vart, Rabbi Masenta. I don't know if you remember. I think it's the first vart I heard from you was Parshas Noach in 2002. Okay, that's nearly 18 years ago that you gave this vart at Chabad House, and the vart was that it was regarding God's instructions to Noach with building the ark. And God says to Noach, "Tzohar tasa letev." You should make a tzohar. What is tzohar? So Rashi tells us there's two meanings to the word tzohar. Tzohar could either mean it could be a window, or tzohar could be a light. It was a bright, shining light, like a sapphire stone that they brought into the ark. And this ark brought them this brilliant light. So the Baal Shem Tov taught that you could play some Scrabble with the Hebrew letters that were tzohar. One is if you rearrange those letters, you get the word tzara, tzadik reish hey. Same three letters, but tzara means problems, tzaras, right? Unfortunately, we face challenges and difficult moments in life. But if you rearrange the letters, same three letters, you get reish tzadik hey, ritzeh. What's ritzeh? The will, the desire. If you have that will and desire, maybe that's the resilience. Then you could turn it. The very obstacle can become tzohar. It could be a window of opportunity, as you just described. And that window of opportunity, that very challenge and obstacle, can be a shining light in your life. So certainly that's certainly true and fits with what you're saying. But what if people are feeling lonely? And it's very difficult if you're feeling lonely. What are your tips?
Yeah, so first of all, I love what you just said. I want to write that down. It's beautiful, that idea. Yeah, loneliness, I think, is the hardest thing out there, to be honest, and the hardest thing anyone can experience in life. And the reason I think that is because human beings were created to be together and feel connected. We thrive as humans through social contact, social engagement. We're not supposed to be on our own. And I think also in this day and age, I'm not sure why, but I think people feel like it's a weakness. If you reach out to somebody else, it's like considered, a weakness, but it's the opposite. If you're strong enough to make yourself vulnerable and reach out and say, I need someone to talk to, I need to connect, then, that is a strength, being able to reach out. I would say it's crucial and so important to, pick up the phone or reach out to a friend, a loved one, and, or to Rabbi Kievman, who's always got a smile on his face and a warm, welcome for everybody. And if there's no one, then, a professional. Just everybody needs to be seen. Everyone needs to feel valued and heard. So yeah, just it's important to stay connected. Absolutely.
We have a question here from Bernice, but just on the note of what you're saying about being connected. That is our motto. It's never too late to connect. And there's so many ways to connect, whether it's connecting with your Yiddishkeit. And these days, there's so many opportunities virtually. Connect with your family. There are so many ways to do that. And if anyone needs some technical assistance, we'll be glad to help you out there. And with Yom Tov coming, connect with God. There are so many ways to connect. And Bernice's question is, isn't grit like a muscle? One must work at it daily in order for it to be available when you need it. And Bernice, just a little note from me before I pass that on to Maria for your response on that. But, when we exercise, there's some pain. And without pain, you're not going to have the muscle gain. But the more you work on it, the more you overcome it. And that pain, obviously, is a desirable pain. And perhaps in life, sometimes we go through difficulties, but if we can have the resilience to overcome those challenges, then the pain will, Lefum Tsar Agra, our sages tell us that according to the work, according to the pain is the gain. But what do you have to say, Robertson?
No, I mean, I think you've answered it beautifully and perfectly. But I would also say that, people are scared of their children going through hardships and difficult times. And I actually think, children are extremely adaptable. I've seen with my own children through this, number one, through moving countries and adapting to being in South Africa. Number two, through going back to school wearing masks. And, they learn how to be flexible and adapt. That's just what children do, but they take it from us as adults. We're their role models. So if we can do it, then they do it, much more easily. Here we have a live, resilient child in front of us. Hello. And wearing her hard hat just in case, And I would also say that, don't be scared of, your children experiencing difficult things, because that's how we build the muscle that Rabbi Kievman was talking about. You do get better and better at it, I think, as the years pass. I think our seniors are probably the most resilient of us all, because they've had so many life challenges thrown at them from, childhood through teenagehood, through young adulthood and middle age, and to senior years, that they're the experts. We should be asking them, how do they cope with the challenges of life? But yeah, as you said, I think it's a muscle. We just need to practice bouncing back.
Right. Well, that's the University of Hard Knocks. Well, let me ask you before we wrap up. Firstly, do you have any other tips? And I would like to ask you, I know you have a guided visualization, and I think people would really gain from that. But first, if you've got any other tips to share with us that we could all gain from.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if we have time, but yeah. So one last tip I would say is that everybody needs to smile. Something I know Rabbi Kievman's very good at. I spent a whole week with him and his family in the Pesach retreat, and he always had a smile on his face. So I think that it's really important to know that we don't always feel like smiling. But actually smiling from a biological perspective, it actually releases endorphins and serotonin, which makes us feel good and makes us feel less stressed. So it actually makes us want to smile more, makes us happy. And also there's something called mirror neurons, which we have in our brains. And what that means is that when we smile, somebody reflects with their mirror neurons our smile, so then they smile with us. And that's harder to do if you're wearing a mask. You have to work really hard, on your smile lines and crease your eyes a bit. But it is possible, I think. So yeah, I think it's like that old song, when you smile, the whole world smiles with you. It's true. I think it has a ripple effect in the world, so just keep smiling. I know also, the Pirkei Avos says, Havei mekavel kol adam beheve panim yafot. Is that right? Which is translated
with a pleasant countenance.
Yeah, greet everyone with a pleasant countenance, which I think is often explained as meaning with a smile. So it's just super important, and it's really easy to do. That's my last tip.
Mark, you just said that Rabbi Kievman infects everybody. I hope I don't infect anyone positively. No, I'm just kidding. These days, being infectious positively. But thank you for that compliment. Do we have time for a guided visualization? I think everyone would really benefit from that.
How much longer do we have? Because it could take.
How long does the visualization take?
Unless I read it really, really quickly, then if I do it at a normal speed, it will probably take about 7 minutes.
That's perfect. It's a Sunday. We're relaxed. We have a concert this evening.
Great. Sounds good. Okay. So, yeah, everyone, if they feel like it, they can just, relax and take a deep breath and make yourself comfortable. And when you feel ready, you can close your eyes. Just like loosen your body. You can roll your shoulders back and forth a bit if you like. And start to listen to your breathing. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And any distractions or sounds, let them just become background noise. Breathing in calm and relaxation, and breathing out any distractions and anxieties. And as you do this, you'll start to feel calmer and calmer, and more relaxed. Now become aware of your body, continuing to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, feeling more and more relaxed. I want you to focus on your legs now. Tighten them and then relax. Tighten and relax. And once more, tighten them and relax. All the time feeling more and more relaxed, going deeper and deeper into a wonderful state of relaxation. Now scrunch up your arms and your shoulders and release them. Scrunch them up and release. And again, tighten them and release. All the time breathing in and out. In and out. Feeling more and more relaxed. Now tighten up the muscles in your face and release them. Tighten and release. Tighten and release. You feel deeply and completely relaxed, continuing to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. I want you to notice 5 steps in front of you. With each step up, you will feel even more relaxed. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. You are completely and utterly relaxed. You notice the door in front of you. Take in the shape and texture of the door. Notice the door handle and open this door and stand into your favorite safe place. It may be a place from your past or somewhere you have always longed to be, an imaginary or a real place. You find yourself in your favorite safe place, feeling completely calm and totally at ease. You are surrounded by the sights, sounds, and smells of your favorite place. Take in the textures and tastes. Take it in with all your senses and embrace it. You have a total feeling of comfort and feel very safe and completely relaxed. You will stay in this favorite safe place as long as you need. Whenever you wish to return, you will go through the door, go down the 5 steps, and return to the room, feeling refreshed and relaxed. So anyone who wants can stay there, and anyone who's ready to come back to be with us, then come back.
Wow, that was really great. I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed that and appreciated it. So that's incredible. Thank you. Now we've been taking questions throughout. So firstly, a tremendous yasher koach. Thank you so much, Maria. You know, this was fantastic, really great and very helpful to so many. And
thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And especially this final I guess the guided visualization. I mean, even with my kids being present, it was still very relaxing and worthwhile, and a reminder to take those deep breaths. So I guess before we conclude, if anyone else has any questions, you're welcome to put them here into the chat box or the Q&A box. Certainly, there's some messages. Cape Town, thank you, Felicity, for your words of encouragement. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, thank you very, very much, Maria, for today's very special session. And we look forward to, please God, having more. We appreciate your time that you've given and the tips and ideas, very, very helpful. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And please stay tuned for so many more upcoming events. Tonight, we have a concert here on Zoom. Tomorrow morning, we have a very special session called Inside Out from 10 to 11:30 a.m., where I will give you the background of the Hasidic movement, when it started, how it developed, and it will be a very interesting and interactive 90-minute session that everyone's welcome to join us for. And in the coming days this week, just check your inbox for all our Zoom sessions, lots and lots of them. But just to tell you specifically what I'm offering is a DIY for every Yid, where I will be taking you through the steps of Yom Tov, whether you're at home, going to shul, or regardless where you'll be celebrating the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, Chol Hamoed, you name it. We'll be giving you tips and ideas how to do it during these challenging and difficult times. So if anyone needs a high holiday handbook that we've created at Chabad House, just let me know and we'll make sure to get it through to you. With that, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Rebbetzin Beider. May Hashem shower you with abundant brachas, lots of nachas from your children and your family. Fond regards to your dear husband. I consider him a real cover. And
thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
Shavua Tov. Thank you all.
Shavua Tov.
Oh, one more question that just came through. How do you let every problem on Hashem's shoulders? Okay, Shoshana, join us for our sessions. Unless Maria, you want to quickly answer that.
I missed it. I'm sorry. What was it?
I'm not even sure what the question. How do you let every problem on Hashem's shoulders? Maybe I'll just give a quick answer to Shoshana, and that is, don't you know you're never alone? It doesn't matter where you are. There's nothing in his eyes more special than you. Wherever you go, Hashem is with you. Danke, everyone. Thank you.
Wow, Shkoya, thank you. Beautiful. Bye.